Hey Broncos fans, you saw the title on the video. You know what's coming around the corner. But first, I want to encourage you guys to subscribe to the Broncos Breakdown here. We're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers by draft night, just under 2 weeks away, but we only have a little over 500 to go. We're at 2,466 subscribers right now, and we can't get to 3,000 without you. So if you like what you're watching, you want more videos like this around the latest Broncos news, rumors, draft, fun segments, mailbags, we are the channel for you. Hit that big red button and subscribe today. It's mock draft season here on the Broncos Breakdown. I'm your host, Sam Brown. We're going to be diving in all 7 rounds, top to bottom, breaking down every single pick that I made in this Pro Football Network simulator. Let's start first of all by talking about the Broncos' outlook overall, because they do still hold the number 9 overall pick in the draft. And recent reports have really showed several different options for the Broncos, whether it's staying at 9, trading up potentially for a quarterback, trading down maybe for more draft assets and still landing a top prospect. The real question is whether George Paton decides that Drew Lock isn't the future and that there's a guy in this draft that he's willing to trade up for that he likes more than Drew Lock. That's the big question that we're waiting to see what the Broncos' answer is really. And so with 2 weeks until the draft, at this point, you really have a mix of options, and that's what we're going to dive into. Trust me, the option I've got here in the first round may not be one that you have explored yet, but it's going to be an interesting one. So let's jump right on into the mock draft, starting with the top 8 picks leading up to Denver at number 9 overall. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, 1 and 2. Trey Lance to San Francisco in this mock at number 3, and Justin Fields from Ohio State to the Falcons at number 4. And then the rest, 5 through 8, Penei Sewell, the tackle out of Oregon, to the Cincinnati Bengals. A pair of wide receivers, Devonta Smith and Jamar Chase. And then J.C. Horn actually drafted before Patrick Surtain, number 8 overall to the Carolina Panthers, which leaves the Broncos at number 9. Except somebody came calling with the trade offer. The LA Chargers offering their first and their second round pick just to slide down 4 spots for the Denver Broncos. You know me if you've watched the Broncos Breakdown. You know that I like to trade down. I don't think this would happen in real life, especially because it's an in-division trade. But I don't control the mock, so I said yes. But would you have done the trade? I want you to get your votes in the comments section right now. You can type your Y for yes or type your N for no. I think you're getting good value here, though. It's an extra second-round pick. There's still several prospects like Parsons, Surtain, like I said, a couple other big-name players, Rashawn Slater, for example, that I think could be a good fit for Denver at number 9 and number 13. So I went ahead and did it, but I want to hear from you in the comments section. All right, we'll go 9 through 12 now. The Chargers actually take Christian Darrisaw, the tackle out of Virginia Tech, rather than Slater, who I would have taken at number 9 if I was LA. Patrick Surtain, Jalen Waddle, and Mac Jones, a trio of Alabama players. Mac Jones at 12 is interesting. You know, this mock draft was kind of interesting. And there were several players that I could have taken here. Micah Parsons still on the board. Some of the corners, a Caleb Farley potentially. But there's a guy maybe that you noticed wasn't on this top 12. And he's arguably a top 3 player in this draft. So I kind of did a thing here. And I drafted Kyle Pitts, the tight end out of Florida at number 13 overall. This was purely best player available for me. When you have a top 5 player in a draft class available at number 13 overall, you don't hesitate. You take him and you figure out where he fits later. This is one of the best tight end prospects maybe ever, honestly. He's the best one in years, that's for sure. Got all the tools you want at the position, athletic freak, and you can line him up inside, outside, put his hand in the dirt at the line of scrimmage. He can really do it all, and I'd be excited to see how he fits in this Denver offense. He absolutely tore it up last season. 12 touchdowns in 8 games. That is insane. 770 yards, almost 18 yards a catch. Like I said, this is more than just a tight end. This is a guy that you could put out wide, put on the inside. He can run his routes. He's a matchup nightmare, and he can create yards after the catch as well. I love the potential of Kyle Pitts. I think he's about as surefire of a prospect in this draft class as you'll find, maybe next to Trevor Lawrence or a Penei Sewell, depending on how you have your rankings. But all of a sudden, you look at this Broncos skill position group with Kyle Pitts in it. This would be one of the best young skill groups in football. Noah Fant and Kyle Pitts, a tight end duo causing nightmares. 2 athletic guys. You throw in Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Melvin Gordon, maybe another running back, hinting at the later rounds of this mock draft. But Kyle Pitts at number 13 was just too good to pass up. I know there's a need at linebacker. We'll address it later on in this mock, but Kyle Pitts is a freak of nature, and his fit in this Denver offense would be very intriguing. So I'm happy with Kyle Pitts in round 1. I think a lot of teams would be. Would you be happy with Kyle Pitts in round 1? Type H for happy or type U for unhappy. Get your votes in the comment section. I want to hear from you guys throughout this show today. See what you guys think about my picks. I'll be going in and checking out and seeing what you guys have to say. H for happy, U for unhappy. All right, we're moving over to round 2, pick number 40. Let's take a look at some of the notable picks before number 40 overall. Christian Barmore, a guy I would have been intrigued with in round 2. Javonte Williams goes to Jacksonville. Caleb Farley, man, if he had slipped all the way to 40, I would have pounced on that. Tevin Jenkins at 36 to Miami. And Trevon Merrick, a couple picks before the Denver Broncos, goes to the Carolina Panthers. Another guy I probably would have taken at number 40 overall. Instead, I went for another safety in Richie Grant out of UCF. Very athletic, very versatile player who would fit really well in Vic Fangio's defense and would have time to develop and really learn the system before it was really his time to produce. Played both free and strong safety at UCF, played some nickel, a tiny bit on the outside as well. This is a guy that you could put in a lot of different situations. He just makes plays on the ball, and that's what Kareem Jackson does. You could find Grant to develop behind Kareem Jackson, give him time. Kareem Jackson is only on a 1-year deal, so maybe picking his replacement in Richie Grant could be the move here for Denver. 17 pass breakups, 10 interceptions in those 34 games at UCF as a starter, Played some the year before, just didn't start. But he's a ball hawk. He makes plays on the ball. Another athletic player that you can put out in space, have him make plays on the ball. That's where he thrives. And again, I think this is another guy who would fit very well in Vic Fangio's system. Give him time, see how he develops, and then from then on, I think you've got a very high upside player who could blossom into one of the brightest young safeties in the NFL. Now we're going to 47, where the Chargers obviously traded that second-round pick to the Denver Broncos. I went offensive line here, and I went with Trey Smith out of Tennessee. This is a guy that was very highly touted out of high school. 5-star guy, dealt with some inconsistency, actually had a scare with blood clots as well in 2019. But he's got the upside. He would likely be a guard at the NFL level, but he also has the frame to play right tackle at 6'5", 320 and some change. And that's really what I'm thinking here for Denver, because he provides depth immediately, whether it's in the interior at guard or on the outside, because there's still questions around Juwan James. I think left tackle is solidified, at least for now, with Garrett Bowles. That interior offensive line is solid. There's no doubt about it. But Trey Smith provides some upside that some of those guys just don't have. And then Juwan James obviously only played 3 games in 2 seasons since signing what was then the biggest contract for a right tackle in football. Trey Smith provides some insurance in that regard as well. Like I said, 6'6", 335. This is a big boy. He moves fairly well, could improve in that regard, but he is a physical freak, loves to maul opponents, really good in the run game as well. I think this is a guy that you kind of develop over time, work with him, because he has the upside to be a top-end starter here in the NFL. Now, before we move into round 3 and the later rounds of the draft, again, I want to remind you guys to subscribe to the Broncos Breakdown. We're going to be bringing you non-stop draft coverage until the big night, whether it's the latest Broncos news or rumors, maybe some draft targets to look at, not just on day 1, but on day 2, day 3, some of the later rounds. That's what we do here at the Broncos Breakdown, and we like to hear from you guys. Chat Sports is built on audience engagement, so subscribe, comment on videos, like videos. We want to hear from you guys, and we want you to join the Broncos channel. All right, round 3, we're going with a linebacker here in Nick Bolton out of Missouri. This is a guy that slipped in the mock draft. I don't think he falls this far, but the value is great here. He's a big hitting linebacker, shines in coverage, and I think he would have time to really develop as well, because there are some inconsistencies in his play that he can shore up over time behind A.J. Johnson and Josie Jewell. He's got starter potential. There's no doubt about it. As you look at his last 2 seasons, nearly 100 tackles in both seasons, averaged almost a tackle for lost a game across 2 seasons. He can get to the quarterback as well. Really good in coverage. You see it, 7 pass breakups, 2 interceptions in 2019. Wasn't picked on as much in 2020, which is why he didn't have an interception. But this is a guy that I think, again, another strong fit in Vic Fangio's system, which relies heavily on their middle linebackers to be strong both in the run and in the pass. Now, the pass part is there for Nick Bolton. Still needs to work a little bit in the run game, finding his gaps, reading the play itself. But this is a guy, again, who flies to the ball, has a lot of upside, and I think with time, would develop into a starting linebacker in the Broncos defense. All right, round 4, pick number 114. I went running back here, Trey Sermon out of Ohio State, a guy that I got a chance to watch a lot when I was covering the University of Oklahoma football team. Spent his first 3 years at Oklahoma before transferring to Ohio State. And I think this is a guy that could come into the Broncos running back room and contribute right away. They called him the minister at Oklahoma because once he got a full head of steam, he was bringing that sermon to the defenders. And that's the kind of mentality I think he would bring to a Broncos running back room that, since Phillip Lindsay has left, is looking a little thin and can use just one more body. I don't know if I fully trust Royce Freeman / Mike Boone to be that RB2 role. And Trey Sermon could come in, get touches right away, has improved as a pass catcher throughout his time in college, and I think could come in and, again, provide some upside. These are kind of guys in those middle rounds that could provide early touches, but they're early. The upside long term is really what I'm looking at. I think Trey Sermon could be just that. Melvin Gordon isn't getting any younger, has dealt with injuries of his own. Trey Sermon does have some injury concerns of his own, but at the same time, I think this is a guy that comes in to compete for touches as an RB2, RB3 right off the bat. All right, moving over to round 5, we'll go a little quicker here on the day 3 picks. Garrett Wallow, linebacker out of TCU, again, kind of shoring up that linebacker spot, middle linebacker behind A.J. Johnson, Josie Jewell. A physical player, first team All Big 12 the past 2 seasons, a 4-year player at TCU. He's a physical player who flies to the ball. Another guy who's not great at reading defenses, reading the play, often gets a little over eager at times to make a play and winds up shooting the wrong gap or something like that. Struggles in coverage as well. That's definitely something he would need to improve upon. And doesn't really have the athleticism to really present high-end upside in that area. But at the same time, I think this is a strong depth piece who can compete right away on special teams. And this is a guy that's going to give you everything he has. A strong captain at TCU. I think he'd fit in well with the Broncos culture. I talked about Trey Sermon. That's a guy I've watched plenty of film on. Garrett Wallow as well in the Big 12. But name a player I should watch more film on. The guy's coming up here. I'm definitely going to need to do a little more study on. But I want to hear from you. If you've got a player from maybe your alma mater or a player that you've had a chance to watch last season, this is your chance to show him some love in the comments and let me know who I should watch more film on. As we move into round 6, I went with a cornerback, Cameron Bynum out of Cal. In the 6th round, I'm always willing to go for these 4-year starter, captain, leader type of roles. I'll always be down to take a gamble on those because no matter whether they don't have the athleticism like Cameron Bynum, not the fastest guy in the world, he's got the size and the instincts, but he really provides that leadership. He's a strong leader, would fit in well with that culture. And at that point, once you get to round 6, round 7, you're really throwing darts. And so I'll take the intangibles really over the maybe the on-the-field production. This is a guy who could come in, is going to be willing to learn right away from guys like Ronald Darby and Kyle Fuller, and again, provide some depth in that Broncos cornerback room. That's really what I'm looking at here in the later rounds is some depth pieces. Cameron Bynum provides that for the Denver Broncos. Round 7, pick number 237, I went with Alaric Jackson, offensive tackle out of Iowa. 42 career starts in 4 seasons with the Hawkeyes, a guy that was really consistent in his time at Iowa. Another mauler in the run game, really struggles the most in pass protection. He's not the quickest guy, doesn't turn his hips incredibly well, doesn't deal well with those speed rushers, so to speak. But he's got some depth, again, for this Broncos offensive line and provides some experience. Like I said, 42 starts in the Big Ten when he's dealing with pass rushers constantly. Guys like Chase Young, for example, it's nothing to scoff at. He's had the experience. He's not a high upside player, but this is a guy that could come in, provide depth, and provide insurance for a Broncos offensive line that dealt with several injuries last season. Now, this guy has a lot of upside at pick 239. Israel Mukuamu, the cornerback out of South Carolina. This is a guy that around the 2019 season, halfway through, there was some hype around him being a higher draft pick. Now, his counterpart, J.C. Horn, is the guy that's going to go round 1 in this year's draft. But Mukuamu has the physical tools. He's 6'4", 205 pounds, with arms like a pterodactyl. I mean, his wingspan is nuts. He's got good ball skills, but just needs to work in coverage, timing receivers, not biting on jab steps, fakes, whatever it may be. Denver would need to be patient with him, and that's the key. You'd need to be patient with him over time. He'll start on special teams, no doubt about it, provide some value there. But this is a guy that, given time, give him a year, maybe 2, could really develop into a starter potentially on the defense if things go according to plan. But Denver would need to be patient with Israel Mukuamu. Finally, the last pick at 253 overall, I went to the defensive line and to Daryl Slayton, the defensive tackle out of Florida. This is a powerful player. He's a big boy, no doubt about it. And that kind of hurt him in a sense. He struggled with some weight issues at Florida. At one point was a little over 380 pounds, which is just nuts. The conditioning definitely needs to improve. The mentality in that regard needs to improve. And he's going to need some time to really develop. This is more of a guy to slot in behind Mike Purcell and really learn from him along that defensive line. A guy like Shamar as well, who the Broncos just signed. I think Daryl Slayton's going to need some time. Won't be an impact player right away. But again, at these later rounds, you're kind of just shooting darts, seeing if one of them lands. I'm really banking on Mukuamu and Cameron Bynum more than anything. But I think Daryl Slayton presents some potential value over time on that Broncos defensive line, which is young and budding right now. All right, so let's recap everything here. Kyle Pitts, Richie Grant, Trey Smith, and Nick Bolton on days 1 and 2. I think you shore up a couple positions there, linebacker, safety as well, behind Kareem Jackson and Justin Simmons. Trey Sermon provides some depth to that running back room in round 4. And then at the later rounds, really looking for guys who over time could potentially develop into value pieces. Garrett Wallow, Cameron Bynum, Alaric Jackson, Israel Mukuamu, and to Daryl Slayton. That is your Broncos mock draft 2.0, and I want to hear what you have to say about it. Rate it in the comments for me. A, B, C, D, or F. You can be brutally honest if you don't like it. I'll take it like a man. It's not going to bother me. I may lose a little bit of sleep at night, maybe cry myself to sleep here and there. No, I'll be all right. Be honest with me. I want to know what you think. I think this was a solid mock. Didn't love some of the later round picks, but I think I'd probably give myself a B on that one. But get your votes in the comments section right now. One more time, be sure to subscribe to the Broncos Breakdown. Plenty more draft talk here in the couple of weeks leading up to the NFL draft. You're not going to want to miss any of it. Not just me, my guys Tom Downey, Mitchell Renz, Harrison Graham. They're going to be bringing you everything around the Denver Broncos. Chase Sr. might hop on now and then. I don't think you've met him yet, but who knows? You just might. Be sure to subscribe, turn on your notifications, and we'll see you next time.